In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look here at a very cold pattern ahead. The models have doubled down on the amount of cold that they expect and now are both in agreement for consistent Arctic air in the central and eastern United States all the way through the end of their model runs, aka no end in sight. And during this time period, unlike previous years, if we did have cold, this year we actually do have a very active storm track and southern stream infusing moisture into it, which is going to just bump up those snowfall probabilities. We're currently tracking a minor to moderate snow system for areas pretty far to the south throughout Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Arkansas, and moving into North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. We're going to see that one come and go, and we have multiple threats upcoming for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, Midwest, Great Lakes, as we see active coastal systems and very active clipper systems moving through as well. So let's just take a look at the current conditions first things first, and we could tell this northern jet is kind of diving in this way. We can kind of see these storms up here following suit with that. These are the more northern stream storms that are moving in, and then we could see this southern stream infusing into it, and these are just kind of moving together after that point. Two things primarily. One, we have our next clipper system here in south central Canada moving down. We'll talk about that on the model guidance in just a little bit. We do have some snow showers in the northeast, which is interesting, but the bigger story is this system down here where we're already seeing some snowfall for parts of Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And again, we do expect this to spread eastward, and we could just see the moisture that's going to be moving up into this. We could see our main system here. This is all going to kind of come together and bring plenty of snowfall for a lot of these areas in here. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. So let's first off talk about the model guidance, where we will see this system among other ones. And again, clippers are going to be a big theme here. We're probably going to see 5 or 6 of them over the next 2 weeks. And that is going to really drive up those snowfall totals throughout the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and even into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. The problem is once you move east of the Appalachian Mountain Range, because these systems are so small, that really east of the mountains, it's going to be tougher to get snowfall. So you're going to notice when we look at the total snowfall, you're going to notice that factor. We'll talk about that later on, though. Let's watch this system play out. We can see the time. It should be on the top right. I forget where I put it. Top right or top left, and you will see the time. But this is 7 a.m. here tomorrow on Friday, the 5th, and we do see snowfall. Even me likely seeing snowfall here, but we see a lot of Kentucky, West Virginia, and northern North Carolina seeing snowfall, even moderate to heavy in some of these areas. This is a smaller system, but I think some people are going to see 4, 5, 6 inches of snowfall from this. So again, for these southern areas, I would constitute that probably as more of a moderate snow system. A lot of areas will end up likely with 1 to 3 inches, which for pretty much anywhere is a more minor snowfall event, but nevertheless, very interesting for the first week of December. I can't remember ever seeing a snow threat for my area this early, so this is all just a bonus. We were talking about that yesterday, but by the time we reach the afternoon, we can see this one was already going to be coming to a close. This is 4 p.m. and we see some snow showers for northern Virginia, Maryland, maybe DC, Delaware, New Jersey, and southeastern Pennsylvania before this one's pretty much moving out. And again, the low is right here. It's forcing that mild air on shore. And for the most part, we see rain here for my local area. And if this low was stronger, it's only about 1,010 by this point, we would likely see a lot more snowfall going on here, but it's just not the heftiest system in the world. Now, it's worth noting we did just close out a contest for this snowfall event. We're also going to be doing them for all of the upcoming ones, including the one that we're about to see in a minute. And we're doing a winter-long contest. For each of these individual storms that we do compete in, I'm going to be tallying up the totals. And throughout the winter, we're going to be keeping track of the leaderboard and who's on top, and we are going to have massive prizes for a lot of the people at the top. So if you want to try your hand at predicting or guessing, if you think you're better than me even, go ahead and compete in there. I'm competing in it. Of course, if I win, by the way, I'm going to give the prizes to all the people underneath me, of course. I'm not going to not give it out if I win. So compete with me in there. I'm doing it for fun. It's been a whole lot of fun, and a lot of you are contributing to the community and participating in these events, and we're going to be doing a severe weather one as well for the severe weather season. More on that coming up, but we are going to be starting that on the new year. So you're going to want to join the Discord server using the QR code, the link in the description and pinned comments down below. It's been so much fun interacting with you guys. Let's keep moving ahead, and by Saturday, we see that system's fully moved out. And the theme today, really, you're going to watch this northern jet. It's going to be descending into the east like this almost the entire model run here. We saw our sudden stratospheric warming event in mid-November, and that caused the polar vortex to disrupt. And that's why we're getting so much Arctic air right now, because it does have a couple of weeks of a lag time. So we're seeing the results of that now, a couple of weeks later. And models have been suggesting that we're going to see another sudden stratospheric warming event in the Arctic, which is going to cause that polar vortex to disrupt again, which is likely going to cause a very similar pattern, just a little bit colder because it's going to be later in the winter, but for late December into January. And that's when I think a lot of us are going to cash in. But really, for the upcoming pattern, the beginning to mid portion of December, we're seeing a lot of action here. So no end in sight for this activity, guys. I can't stress enough how optimistic I am for the upcoming pattern. We do see a low developing here by Saturday for Nebraska. Already some snowfall starting out for the Dakotas. We see some underneath for the Rockies as well. And as we move this forward, this one ends up being a little bit of a stronger clipper system by Saturday, Sunday for the Midwest into the Ohio Valley. And then as we can see, it brings some snowfall there to the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, mostly the Northeast there, by the time we're reaching Sunday, Monday. The European model isn't as ambitious with this system. Part of that is we have a northern piece of energy that we can see here, and we have a southern piece of energy that we can see here, but there is quite a bit of distance between those. And on the GFS model in a minute, we're going to see this come together for Sunday into Monday, which is only a few days away. We're going to be tracking this a lot in the Discord server, I'm sure, because this one has big time potential, much more than the one that we're seeing tonight into tomorrow. I think that the Sunday Monday one is boom or bust, meaning that it could end up being a nothing burger, but it does have the potential to be something much larger. And we're going to continue to track this one. Again, there's a lot of model guidance suggesting that that's possible. And even looking here, if this low was to track northwest, and I know that's a long shot, that's quite the distance for like 4 days out, but we would be looking at another potential snowfall event in these lower areas like North Carolina, Virginia, the heart of the Mid-Atlantic there. Those areas are cold enough right here. It's just if the low is a little bit closer, you would be seeing precipitation meeting up with that cold. We don't see that here right now on the European model, but again, there's a lot of potential. Immediately afterwards, it seems like we're kind of segueing from storm to storm with no breaks in between, and it seems that way because we are. Another clipper system is already moving down, and a lot of these have moved out innocently that we've seen on the models. Just kind of moved through and out. We do, with these clipper systems, watch for what's called a Miller B nor'easter, which is if a clipper system is to move offshore and the jet stream's favorable, they can kind of climb up the coast much like a nor'easter, and those tend to be pretty hefty snow systems. And we're watching for that potential for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here, and I think this is one of them that we do see that maybe happen on. If not, there's others throughout these model runs, but we see heavier snowfall for the Midwest and Great Lakes for Monday into Tuesday. And this one doesn't really do it, so I was wrong there, but we do see some northeastern snowfall. Here comes another one immediately for Tuesday into Wednesday, Midwest, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We do see a secondary low setup, and here we go. Okay, so we got a low offshore close to Long Island, and we end up getting heavier snowfall in similar areas that just saw the most with our previous snow system. What's funny is, again, back-to-back-to-back snow systems. Look at what's happening while this one's taking off. We already have the next one lined up. I mean, this is so frequent. I can't stress that enough. And these are heavy, heavy clipper systems. So we see heavier snowfall there in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast from that. Likely, again, a possible plowable snowfall event. And we see this heavier one move through the Midwest for Thursday the 11th into Friday the 12th through the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic. And this one almost wants to be a Miller B nor'easter. We can see it does strengthen offshore, but it moves straight offshore. What you need is that pull up the coast, and that's how it gets close enough for these areas. We really don't see that here, but it does have the potential. It's like more than 7 days out, so we could obviously see this thing really trend differently. Then we get a really far northern clipper here for the northern plains and Midwest for that weekend, next weekend, Friday the 12th, Saturday the 13th. And that one does lower into the Northeast, and we do see some snowfall again for these areas. The Arctic air just makes a huge comeback here. And then we start to get these Midwest systems, and look at the very tail end of the model run. We end up with some activity offshore, maybe hinting at a more Miller A nor'easter pattern, which is the classic nor'easters that you're used to. They originate in the Gulf and they move all the way up the East Coast. And oftentimes These tend to be the bigger of the two types, and also further south areas can cash in more often from these Miller A type nor'easters. And this is very far out, but interesting to note that this does look favorable for that continued Arctic air. And I'm sure if we continue to see cold for a very long period of time here, like these models are suggesting, something is bound to come together. That's just the way that I see it with this active storm track, very, very intense Arctic air, staying consistent. Something is bound to go down, maybe on multiple occasions, as we've seen throughout this model run. Looking at the GFS model, again, for your current snow system, it's very similar to the European model. Typically, when you're within 48 hours, you do expect to see that consistency, so I love to see it looking very, very good. And then, again, we get this Clipper system. Here's Sunday, Monday, but look at how intense that is for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This is a whole different story. We have very broad low pressure. You could tell the center is right here. But really, when we look at where the 1,008 millibar low pressure is, it's just all over the place. We have very broad low pressure, and that's why we get the precipitation field way further north and inland here. And this would be a plowable snowfall event for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So again, when I say there's potential for Sunday, Monday, I'm not saying that blindly. I'm not saying if things change on the models, because we do have models showing it right here. This is the 12Z GFS model run from today, and that actually develops a lower pressure area there just offshore of Massachusetts, and the snowfall gets even heavier as we're reaching into Monday morning. So this one has the potential to be very hefty, and again, we're going to launch a contest for this particular system probably by the time this video is even getting out. So go check the Discord server. We're going to start talking about this one a lot, I think. Now, we see the cold continue, that storm comes to an end, and then we start to get the Clipper systems. And look at this. This is a hefty Clipper system. 986 would be very intense for this type of storm. We get heavy snowfall in the Midwest and Great Lakes. And then this one kind of cuts northward as the colder air is moving in. And typically in these cutter situations, you expect a storm track that, again, cuts north inland, not offshore. And typically you're dealing with more mixed or rainfall precipitation towards the east of that type of storm track, and that is what we see here. We do get a very, very far south diving Clipper system here, though. This is very far south compared to normal. It wants to follow the jet stream down. Pretty unusual, pretty rare. I have seen these before, and a lot of times these become Miller Bs, and I forget what this model shows, so let's watch it together. And it's too far offshore. Okay, classic. So obviously, if this low was a little further northwest, you'd be seeing a lot of action here. This would be the bigger type of setup for those Miller B nor'easters. We don't get it together here, but there is plenty of time. Again, this is about 7 days out. I think the European model, we'll go back here, but I think around this time frame we saw something pretty similar further to the north, but here's the same hour. So we can tell the European model is much further northwest with it. So again, the placement, there is definitely variables at play here. The European model would be very favorable for these Mid-Atlantic and Northeast locations. The GFS model leaves more to be desired, obviously, for cold and snow lovers, but the potential is for sure there. Looking forward, we continue to get winter storms moving through, but the GFS wants to take them up mostly up towards Canada after the 12th. We do see the Arctic air continue to be a factor, especially towards the end here. And look at this system. Both models have major systems trending as we reach towards the 20th. And that means very little, by the way, at hours 360, but it is very fun to look at. And we see this one dive south through the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and then eventually into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And this would be a hefty example of a Miller B nor'easter. And like we said, the European model has a nor'easter type signal at the same time frame. So that is worth noting. And this would drop heavy totals for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, low just offshore. I think this would have potential to even be a more coastal system than this, bringing snowfall to these areas that really, really want snow. They haven't had a lot over the last few years. And let me tell you, this looks like a cold period right here. And also, it looks like we've got more activity down the pipeline. So these models really don't show end in sight for the Arctic air or the potential snow systems here. Total precipitation, a lot for the Northwest, and we could tell a lot of this is just tracking straight into these Clipper areas. And then we've got this southern stream down here. And on the European model, there is a huge distance between these two storm tracks. If we could get these closer together, right, to where we're getting a lot of storms moving through like this, and maybe this southern energy is infusing way more close to the coast, that's when you get really, really big stuff to come together. And we are not far off from that looking at the pattern. It is not a long shot at all. Anomalies are going to reflect that. Northwest is very active. Some of the deep southeast is above average, but there is a pretty big lack of precipitation in between for the southwest, the deep south here. Despite seeing some snowfall threats, not a lot of rainfall in between those snowfall threats is the problem. Total snowfall in the European model, speaking of, Cascades and Rockies dealing with average snowfall. Sierra Nevada, far below average. Look at this. Not a flake. Not a flake on this European model for the Sierra Nevada mountains. Like, I'm almost like, is this a glitch on the model run? Because that might be unheard of for December. For a 15-day period, not a flake in the Sierra Nevada. Probably not unheard of, but pretty wild. I can't remember seeing that. And then we can tell there's a lot of clipper systems that add up for this area. And also, there is that deeper south system that does bring this snowfall here, again, over the next 48 hours, 24 hours, something like that. And again, here's what I was talking about with the Appalachian Mountain Range. You can almost make out where it is, and almost nobody east of it, outside of Maine, or southeast of it, I should say, is seeing much of any snowfall. It all breaks up before it moves over those mountains. For these coastal areas, we're going to want something coming underneath, without a doubt. The GFS model run is very, very similar. We do see Sierra Nevada snowfall much more than the European model showed. It's not hard to be much more than nothing. We do see also much of the north central and northeastern states, and I mean the northern half. So if we were to cut this off, I mean, we're talking mostly like this. North of that line, really, really active, lots of threats on both of these models overall. And looking at the temperature pattern, I mean, the European model, we've seen it hint at pattern changes around the 10th or 12th, but we get Arctic blast number 1, that one moves out. Arctic blast number 2, this is for the 8th, 9th, 10th. Arctic blast number 3 moves in for the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. Arctic blast number 4 comes in for the 14th, 15th, 16th. And then even Arctic blast number 5 moves in right at the end. So continuous, far, far, far below average temperatures. I can't stress that enough. The greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is already well below average temperatures. The purplish blues within the greens is 15 to 25 degrees below normal, which is very, very significant. And then the magentas is where we are on the extreme end of things, very cold, and we're seeing 25 degrees or more below normal in those magenta areas. And we see that on multiple occasions. Here it is. There it is again. Almost every single one features the magentas here. So we are seeing rich, very intense areas of Arctic air moving in over and over and over again. In the GFS model, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We get a little lull right here, the 16th, 17th, 18th, and then we get 6 right there moving in at the very tail end. So a little bit different here. We do get this little bit of a multi-day kind of thaw going on the GFS model run, but not too far off. And when we look at the ensembles, I've loved showing you guys this. I think this is a very useful graphic. Here is, well, we're going to have to refresh this real quickly to get it to the end. Here is the 9th through the 19th on the European ensemble model. There's no denying for this 10-day period, this model shows a positive PNA, which means warmer out west, and all of this cold is just being directed straight into the east. No denying that's the pattern, and I'm not even going to remove my drawing. Let's look at the GFS ensemble model, and it is the same thing here. Warmer in the same area. The Arctic air is being placed right in the same track. These ensembles are in perfect agreement, and the important thing with the ensemble models is we have 20 to 30 members that are slightly different from each other, and it's taking the mean average of all of those and putting it together. So you're getting this kind of group consensus and the average of it, which it tends to be very, very accurate. Maybe not for very specific amounts or anything like that. It can be, but the bigger picture is just where is the blue and where is the orange. And when you take the group consensus of that, especially when we get both groups in perfect agreement, that is golden. This looks to be the pattern that we're locked into for the majority of December. At this point, that is safe to say. Not guaranteed, but there's a very, very significant chance that that is what we end up with for the majority of December. And I think the 20th beyond, even into the halfway mark of January, has a very solid chance of being similar to this as well. So we are game on, guys, for all you cold and snow lovers. This is awesome stuff. Be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.